From Yankee Stadium, I'm Glenn Crooks. Later to be joined by Matty Lawrence. Chris Sakonis also with us on the broadcast today, the live commentary of New York City FC at home against Columbus. The last two MLS Cup champions will go at it today. Our airtime for the live commentary is 6:45 p.m. Eastern. The New York City FC network, that's NYCFC.com/radio. For now, it's NYCFC Pre-Game Live, our live stream that we do an hour before kickoff, before each and every game. We will reveal the starting 11 for both sides as this progresses. We will hear from Neil Sika, the longtime commentator for Columbus Crew SC. He'll be giving us the Columbus side of things. Columbus leads this overall series, 7 wins against 6 defeats. There have been 4 ties between the two, but the last time they met was here at Yankee Stadium, and it was a convincing 4-1 win in 2021 near the tail end of the season for New York City FC. And New York City sitting in 6th place in the Eastern Conference with a 4-3-2 record. And Columbus, they are in 9th place. Their mark is 3-3-4. The story here is Columbus has failed to win a road game in 5. However, 4 of those are draws, so that gives you an idea of how Columbus goes at it on the road. It's an interesting Columbus group that after the MLS Cup Championship in 2020 failed to make the playoffs in 2021, while New York City FC, they went on to win their very first MLS Cup. Columbus has won 2 cups in MLS. Last time out for New York City was a 0-0 draw to Sporting KC. A bit surprising because of the torridness of the attack the previous 3 matches, a combined total of 14 goals and 3 consecutive wins. New York City's unbeaten in 4, but the 0-0 result, only 11 shots on goal, which is the fewest at home this season. But there was a common denominator, and that was no Tati Castellanos in the lineup. And on Thursday, City supporters and the New York City Football Club received some good news from the head coach, Ronnie Dyler, when I spoke to him in this one-on-one, which will be part of our pregame show coming up at 6:45.
Tati Castellanos was unable to play and not in the squad in the previous match, the 0-0 draw at City Field. What's his status for this one coming up against Columbus? Do you know yet?
Yeah, he's ready. He's 100% now. So we did everything right there to take him out of the last game, and now today in training was like you can see, he was 100% again. Score goals all over the place, and he's ready to fight on Saturday.
Now the easy thing to conclude in a 0-0 draw and Castellanos isn't in the lineup is that, like, wow, this club is going to struggle to score goals if Tati's not around. So I know you don't look at it strictly like that, but can you respond to that?
Of course, when you have a top scorer like him and a finisher, it's of course going to be a loss. At the same time, this is about systems as well. It's about a team who play each other up to a lot of goal chances, and we have other players who can fill that role and come in and score goals as well. But of course, Tati has some qualities that is difficult to replace, and his desire to win, fight, attack space, he's unbelievable in the air. These kind of things is maybe not, we don't have in the squad right now, but we have other things that so you have to just play a little bit different and get, if it's Eber or Thales or whoever plays up front there, the game will be a little bit different than with Tati.
Can you just explain briefly the advantage of having someone who can fight like that up there, or is strong in the air, or, you know, the kind of example where if you're in a jam, you can just play it in that general direction and good chance you're going to come out with the ball? Yeah,
you know, his hold-up play is good, so if you kick it off the pitch, you know, we have one guy there is everybody's fearing, and the ball will drop down. If we keep the ball, it will drop down around him. So it's easy to move the team from one side to another side, and also if they're very deep, you can just put the ball in the box, and you know he will kill whatever comes in front of him inside the box, and that's not only for himself, but he also create space for others. And a lot of our players is coming against the ball, likes to do that, and then it's good for him as well. He's dragging into in behind and also into the box, and I think that fulfill the others a lot also as well.
That's Ronnie Dyler. First with the good news on Thursday that Tati Castellanos would be in the starting 11 here tonight against the Columbus Crew SC. And then defining some of the qualities that make him so great. So I also spoke to Chris Gloucester, who's getting some time at left back now with the injured Malde Amundsen. And in a little while, also a feature one-on-one with Maxime Chenot, which is on my podcast, On Frame, in full, 20 minutes plus. A really fantastic conversation with Chenot. I don't know if he has given this substantial an interview with details on a lot of different parts of his life and his career here with New York City FC. But I'll have a couple of clips from that interview a little bit later on. But back to Gloucester with Malde Amundsen likely sidelined today. We expect Gloucester to get the run at left back. And this is a kid, Jersey native from Montclair. He came over from PSV Eindhoven to a very crowded left back position last season. He was number 3 behind Malde Amundsen and Gudmundur Thorarinsson, who were essentially splitting the time at left back, while Gloucester, he was left as the number 3. Well, Goody is gone. Malde is here. He's injured. Gloucester's the number 2, so he's getting a chance to play. And he defined the importance of service from his left back position and how he goes about it. Here's a portion of our conversation.
You know, one of your responsibilities on the flank is your service, not scoring goals. Mm-hmm. It's going to be more maybe delivering. Yes. And can you give us a sense of how you work on that? Because you really have to develop relationships with the people receiving the ball, too. Mm-hmm. You know, knowing their movements and things like that. How do you sort that out?
I think, it's just, these types of days, I think, training and really getting those reps in, really knowing your teammates, knowing the strikers, knowing the wingers, how they play, how they move inside the box. And I really think it's just, for the outside backs and no service, I think it's really just putting it into an area and just let the attackers attack it. And I think that's the most you could do, honestly. It's very difficult to actually pick out someone, but when you just put it in the area, it's free for all, and whoever gets there first gets it. So I think, that's the best we could do, really.
Yeah, with Castellanos and Magno to a point, too, it's kind of nice to know that they're pretty good at attacking the ball in the air.
Exactly.
All right, Chris Gloucester with us, and we'll run the full interview at halftime of our broadcast, our live commentary, New York City FC Network. Again, that begins at 6:45 with a pregame show with head coach Ronnie Dyler, presented by Ford. Gloucester will be with us at halftime. But interesting that he just puts the ball in a spot, and he knows Castellanos will be able to attack that spot and produce as he does so often. Castellanos in the starting 11, as is Chris Gloucester today. We'll get you the full 11s for both sides a little bit later on here in our NYCFC pregame live. And again, Maxime Chenot ahead. Some very interesting comments for the big center back, the longest serving player for New York City FC. But now it's time to bring in a guy who, he is the elder statesman of Columbus Crew SC commentary, and Neil Sika with us. And before I bring him in, and there he is, he's all dressed up, ready to go for his commentary on the TV side for Columbus. But let's just put it this way. This dude has a great gig. He played golf over 100 times, 100 rounds of golf in 2021. I don't know if he can top that in 2022, but you're like my hero, Neil. How you doing?
Calling games, Glenn, and playing golf. I mean, that's what we strive for, right? 105 rounds. COVID started a bad habit, a real bad habit in that regard. But it's also good to escape, right? So
absolutely
deal with some stress and the rigors of a 9-month MLS season and other stuff. Hockey and basketball and some of the other things that I do throughout the year. So it's not great weather in Ohio for 12 months a year. So I've got to sneak around parts to the southeast and find some rounds, but it's functional. And over 200 rounds the last 2 years. So you got a long way to go to catch up, but I'm looking forward to sharing in that one day with you.
Well, we talked earlier. I'm trying to make Fridays my golf day. In fact, I don't schedule any interviews or anything on Friday if possible. So, and this Wednesday, New York City plays at DC United at Audi Field, and I've got a 7 a.m. Tee time at one of the local courses. Somebody set it up for me, and so I'm trying to, again, I'm trying to, mold myself after you, Neil. So I'm trying, man.
Well, I'm flattered. If you play, I think it's East Potomac, you get to see all the monuments there. It's a public course.
Yeah, I think that's the course. That's the one that was recommended.
You'll enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, now let's get to soccer here.
Yeah.
And the footy is, we've got the last two MLS Cup champions here going at it. Columbus wins it in 2020, that the altered pandemic year, and you've got to compliment anybody that has success through that. Then 2021, not so much. And now 2022. How do you think the recovery from whatever happened in 21 is going for Columbus?
I think the recovery looks promising, but at the same time, I'm going to say we're still waiting for the Crew. I think Crew fans are waiting for them to hit kind of that stratosphere, which they showed in the first part of 2020 and then in the postseason run. And more often than not, it's looked like the team that has shown up more in 2021, at times, the consistency level, not making the playoffs after making the cup run in 2020. You can't take anything away from what they did in those 4 playoff games, but they were all at home. They didn't have to play on the road in the postseason, which they didn't win during the course of 2020. Yet they took arguably the best team in the last half decade in Major League Soccer in Seattle and shredded them to pieces on their home field. Last year, tons of soft tissue injuries, just could never get the rhythm they wanted. That affected who was on the field. That affected having their best players on the field. So the struggles were something that were on a regular basis for them. And I think now guys are healthy. You didn't have to deal with the Champions League, right? You're dealing with this yourself in New York City, kind of coming along now over the last 4 games with results and the 3-game win streak and looking to get back to what everyone expects from them. The Crew just didn't have that, I think, from the early portion of last year. The schedule was murder, and they were playing these midweek games. And that's also something that did them no favors because remember, we started the season later in April, so everything's congested. You're playing midweek, and just they could never get on the right track. They played their best soccer at the end of the year, but it was too little, too late. I think there's been some things to be cautiously optimistic about to start this year. There's been some things of 2021 that have shown, but to say that they're 500 right now with a tie above that is probably dead on. And now they're in the teeth of a 7-game in 10 on the road, 3 of 4, including a tough one here tonight.
The New York City FC starting 11 is beneath us here, and it's been announced that we see Maxi Morales coming off an ankle sprain on Wednesday, back in the lineup for New York City FC. He could barely walk on Thursday, so a pretty quick recovery for a 35-year-old with a twisted ankle on the artificial surface at Belson Stadium, St. John's University. Neil Sika with us. He is the television commentator for Columbus Crew SC. And it's great that Lucas Zelarayan, the talisman for Columbus, and Tati Castellanos, the defending Golden Boot winner, are both on the pitch at the start of the match. That wasn't the case just a week ago. So it's nice to have the 2 best players fit and ready to go.
2 spectacular Argentines in their own right. They can win you the game anytime they step on the field. Lucas playing sparingly, coming off a knee soreness that's bothered him since mid-March when playing at Red Bull Arena. But this is also going to be interesting because they've been playing successful these last few games in the 4-3-3. And I think they've allowed teams that haven't necessarily been possession-based. This will be interesting tonight because NYC is, but you're playing teams like DC and Kansas City. Go ahead, have the ball, and then try and break us down. Even for New England's sake, they were defending really well within the first 60 to 70 minutes of that game. Lucas Elorano's played the false nine in the appearances that he's had off the bench in this 4-3-3. They've moved him. They'll play him out left tonight so he can get on the ball, create, tuck inside. You've got the overlap from Pedro Santos. So his influence and how that midfield will deal with, the numerous threats that City brings in the attack is going to be key. And whenever you go into Yankee Stadium in a place where the home team has only lost 5 games going back to 2018, and the Crew have lost their last 4 there, defending the second base area and that end of the field is going to be key, not giving things away to a team that can really murder you if you make mistakes. So I think they're bringing a technical club into the lineup tonight to try and deal with that, and we'll see what happens. But having Lucas on the field is huge for them.
Miguel Barry, no Jazzy Zardes. So you see Miguel Barry, who has played against New York City FC, but he is now and you talked about Zelarayan playing the false nine. But Barry, unless somebody else is acquired in the summer window, he seems to be the guy running up the middle.
Yeah, there will be a guy in the summer window. I think they're after the fact that they want someone as significant as the Zelarayan signing, but that's a couple months down the road. Miguel Barry's the guy right now. Eric Hurtado backing him up, having both forwards score last week in a come from behind, a lead, and then a come from behind against New England, I think is important for both. Barry's first goal since the opening day. But he's still a kid, Glenn. I think he's learned a lot of great things with who he had in the locker room last year in Jossie and Bradley Wright Phillips. He's a tireless worker. I think he's done plenty in terms of his duels and holding up play. And I think that's what Caleb Porter liked at the start of the season, the continuity, because Jossie was hurt those last 4 games last year. But the fact that the combination between him and Lucas seemed to be stronger at times. So they rode with that in the preseason. Jossie had his national team duty. He's an all-timer for the Crew. I think everyone knows that if you watched him play over the last 5 years, it just wasn't working out. Needed maybe something fresh. Even after they said they weren't going to trade him, it still didn't work out. Scored today in Colorado, which was nice to see in their play against LAFC. But you're running with guys that, one, don't have a lot of experience or who have been streaky throughout their career. Hurtado's got 20 goals, but he's been in fits and starts. And I think for him, it's a big bounce back year. He's playing with a lot of confidence now. He scored with Crew 2. He scored last week. And these are the players you roll with, and hope you get the supplemental scoring that you've got in the last couple of games where you've had 5 different goals scored.
One more player I want to talk about before we let you depart and get ready for your own pregame show is
Sure.
Derek Etienne Jr.
Yeah.
So he's well known in these parts, Jersey kid, played at Red Bull, and it seems to have, at the age of 25, it seems like he's older than that, but he's been playing for so long in this area now in Columbus. 3 goals, 4 assists on the season, and assisted on both goals last week in that 2-2 draw. And he did it from the fullback position on the right. I know there were certain circumstances, but his ability to just fall back into the back line and be effective, I suppose one of the things about fullbacks is oftentimes they're converted wingers anyway, but if you're not back there defending,
Sure.
day in and day out in training, that's a challenge.
Yeah, and I think in lieu of saying that, both of the guys that are playing fullback, or at least last week, and Santos, he's been a winger for the
There's another one,
career. Yeah, and honestly, those 2 guys, when they played in the midfield, have been their most honest defensive midfielders from the wide positions. And they don't cheat on the play. They've got some integrity there. But to circle back to what you were saying about Etienne, you don't have to get him fired up for this game. Blue and red in the past. You mentioned 25, but seeming like he's playing a lot. You can have the experience, but do you have the maturity? And I think that's now started to come into the fold for the first time for this kid. Everyone is on board with his success because of the fun-loving guy that he is, but he plays with a chip on his shoulder. And in the past, if he did that, maybe it was too aggressive. Now I think he knows when to tone it down, so he can read the room a lot better than he did maybe 2 to 3 years ago. And I say that both on and off the field. He's got a good connection with Moreira, who's coming back into the team tonight. And I think the start from the left midfield position, it was his spot to lose. 2 goals and 2 assists through the first 4 games. The entire team goes through a lull, but he's picked it back up, and he's done it and showing his versatility. And I think it's been a great find for them, even going back over the last couple of years, what they got him in terms of the contract. He goes on loan to Cincinnati, and then you don't make it there, so you're really out to prove something because of the way things have gone in their part of the world the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So it's a great story, and I think right now they know they can rely on him game in and game out.
That's fantastic.
He doesn't check out in games like maybe he did in the past, and I think that's also something I've noticed this season.
Hey, one final thought. I kind of eavesdropped on a conversation between Caleb Porter and Ronnie Deiler before I did a little briefing with Ronnie down in the locker area, and he was talking about the flight difficulties for Columbus, and I wanted to show you
now.
Well, look,
twice.
They had
flight problems last July.
Well, here's a tweet that came out last night, and what's interesting here is you can see the flight pattern, and you see this that oval. That's the charter for Columbus circling around New York for 2 hours, according to Porter, and then they just had to come back and charter in this morning. They had just arrived. Well, from what I could gather, they just arrived at the stadium about 90 minutes ago. So it's been an interesting couple of days for them, and it's the second time. What was the first?
Well, I think they got in super late. They had some delays in the July game, which they lost 4-1.
Oh wow! I
either that or the
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
But I guess you can say throw it back to 2020 when teams were flying in the day of the game.
Well,
and
he said that too. We're using
that awakens karma for them tonight. If they're trying to win, the only time they've won at Yankee Stadium was NYC's first year in 2015.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
All right, Neil. That's Neil Sika, the television commentator for Columbus Crew SC, joining us on NYCFC pregame live. Neil, thank you so much. Have a great call. Enjoy the game, and I look forward to my visit to Columbus and get that tea time, dude.
100 yards and in, Glenn. That's the game. All right. You work on that. Thanks for having me. Have a good show tonight.
All right, man. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Thanks to Neil Sika and Columbus Crew SC. They're here at Yankee Stadium to face New York City FC. It's been raining throughout our conversation here. On my way in very early today, it was overcast, but not raining. But everybody that I've conferred with that have come in over the last hour, 90 minutes, and the rain is expected to continue. Not a driving rain like we've seen. It's more of a steady rain, and we see some of the supporters in the bleachers and in the stands who are they're geared up. They've got their wet weather gear and their ponchos and their umbrellas, and they're all getting ready for kickoff, which is 7:08 p.m. Eastern time. Our pregame is 6:45 on the live commentary, New York City FC Network, NYCFC.com/radio. Let me put the New York City starting 11 up. On the bench, Maxime Chanot. He has made the bench, and for the second consecutive MLS game, he got a start on Wednesday in the U.S. Open Cup game, wearing the mask, which he's going to have to wear permanently when he's competing for the remainder of his career, it would seem. I had to sit down with Maxime earlier this week, Thursday afternoon, and we had a good long chat, which is available on my podcast On Frame, which is available on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and Spotify. So let's go through some of what Maxime had to say. And the first one is the most disturbing, and it has to do with what happened on international duty against Luxembourg against Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it was a friendly fire elbow to his left eye. It was from a teammate, and this is what he had to say about it.
10 minutes during the game, I just get an elbow on my eye, and right away I lost my vision. So I already get many knock on my life, and sometimes you just get like, how you say, like blurry. But that was a little bit different. I was like proper blind right away. So So I went to hospital, and feedback from the exams was very bad. Technically, the doctor from Bosnia just told me I have like 50% of chance to lose my vision permanently. So they proposed me to get a surgery there back in Bosnia, but yeah, that's something I shouldn't consider, you know. So I have to stay. I was stuck in Bosnia for a few days because I couldn't fly back to Luxembourg because of the pressure of the plane. And so yeah, it's been tough. I've been blind for almost 2 weeks. Couldn't see anything from my left eye. Obviously, thinking about football wasn't even like a priority in this case. I was just thinking about having a normal life. So yeah, it's been tough. It's been very tough.
So what was it? Did you wake up one morning and then it was a little better, or at what point did you start thinking, "Ooh, I'm getting this back"?
Yeah, after I would say in 10 days, 12 days exactly. So a little bit less than 2 weeks, I start to see a little bit of light. So that's very good news. And my faith saved me. My faith saved me, and yeah, you know how I'm a big follower of Jesus. I always stay calm in a storm because I know Jesus will be there for me, and that's exactly what happened. So yeah, after 2 weeks, I start to see lights, and every day I start to feel a little bit better until I would say last week, where I start to see like almost like 90% of my vision. So it's been tough. As I said, we're not talking about a muscle injury or broken bones, whatever. Like, you know, it's going to be 3 weeks, 6 weeks or whatever. But just the doctor just told me we don't know. Now we just have to see how your body will react and how you will react. So that, I think, is the funniest, the scariest thing. You know, you just wake up every morning and say, okay, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, Maxime Chenot, waking up every morning and just not certain whether you're going to see again out of your left eye. So then he gets the start on Wednesday in the U.S. Open Cup, and it was a 3-1 victory over Rochester to advance to a match against New England in the round of 16. And it was, it was something to behold when Chenot, first he had this thunderous header out of the area off a corner, defensive header, but then he scored a goal. But let's do this thing about the mask here.
Your reaction was interesting. You were fired up, but you took the mask off and you whipped it to the ground. Was that a statement that I can play with this thing?
Yes, I think it was all my frustration about what happened the last 6 weeks who just left my body at this time. You know, I just want to say if they think Chenot was over, I wouldn't bet on it. You know, I'm just back in a game, and you can trust on me, and I will be back in this team, and I'm gonna help this team to reach another championship.
And this mask, you also said to me that you may have to wear it the remainder of your career. Is that a doctor order, and is that true? Is that the way you know it to be?
Yeah, it's a doctor order, and I think now I've also to protect my health. It's not a broken bones or like a muscle injury where you can heal. Vision, and I experience it, so I can tell you it's something I will need for the rest of my life. So I have to protect myself by wearing this mask, and obviously I showed yesterday I can play with this mask without any issue, so it won't be a trouble to wear it again for the rest of this season and my career.
Maxime Chenot talking about the injury, the mask, the full interview is on Frame. That's a podcast that I produce and host, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and TuneIn. And a couple of other nuggets from there. He wants to play till he's 38. He wants to coach at the NYCFC Academy after that. And he also talks extensively about his relationship with Alexander Collins. Really interesting stuff from Maxime Chenot. So I got a chance to go downstairs and talk to Ronnie Dyla briefly. Tavon Gray is not in the 18. That's the first question. He's been out sick. He's just ill and sick, not injured, any soft tissue, anything like that. He is just sick. Yes, Maxi Morales is in the starting lineup. It'll be interesting to see how that midfield three is configured, but you may see Maxi Morales sitting deep in the early portion of the game. Addressing the rumors about Standard Liège, there have been some reports that Ronnie Dyla is a candidate. There's someone out of Norway that's a candidate, was the report. and the name Ronnie Dyla came up. I asked him specifically about that, and then asked him if anyone has contacted him since winning MLS Cup. He said no one has contacted him, but he said in regard to the rumors, he said he and the players, after having so much success, they're going to be part of these kinds of reports, and it's to be expected. And then on Soccer in the City this week, with myself, John Rojas, and Roberto Abramowitz on the Spanish commentary side, we talked about Belson Stadium, St. John's University, which hosted the New York City win over Rochester 3-1. But after the game, Ronnie Dyla said the field was very dry, very difficult to play on, and he wasn't particularly happy with the surface. So here's what we came up with.
You step on that field in the first 15 minutes, you more worry about your health than the game itself.
Well, Maxi Morales learned that.
I was about to say that. Maxi Morales torn his ankle.
New York City would love to have that field wet, but they don't have the ability to water it down.
They should bring the fire truck in. Just call the fire truck in.
Yeah, they really should.
If you could get
they really should.
If you could get a team escort somewhere, you should be able to get a fire truck, right?
It has to be extremely wet, that kind of artificial surface, because that surface, you can see it from the look of it. It's one of the worst surfaces.
Okay.
And
actually, when you're there, it doesn't look bad, but by the fact that it's not wet, it's a problem. And by the way, Glenn, it's not a bad idea. They really should call in a fire truck before the next game and throw a hose up there and just wet the damn field down.
Well, thank you, Roberto. So I saw Ronnie Dyla before the game. I said, Ronnie, I got a good idea for you. Get a fire truck. You got the ladder, and get a hose and water the field. And he looked at me and he said, don't you think I've told the club that? And because he said, we did that all the time in Norway, because he has said this in the past. They played on a lot of artificial surfaces while he was both a player and a coach in Norway. So that was somewhat standard practice. So we'll keep putting the word out, and maybe we can help Ronnie along here in the effort to water down Belson Stadium at St. John's University for the next U.S. Open Cup game, round of 16, which will be hosted by New York City against the New England Revolution, coming up soon, May the 25th on a Wednesday night. Well, that's going to do it for me. In a little bit, I'll be joined by Maddie Lawrence, also Chris Sakonis, who is hosting our halftime and post-game reports on the New York City FC network with airtime 6:45. So it's just a few minutes from now for the pregame show with Ronnie Dyla, presented by Ford. I'm Glenn Crooks. Thanks for being here. Thanks also to Neil Sika from Columbus Crew SC, their TV commentator, for giving us some great stuff on the Crew. So enjoy the game. Can't say it's a beautiful night in the Bronx, but I guess it always is here at Yankee Stadium. Thanks, everybody.